Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Hikaitu Soul Tools rained fire down on Wei Na like a meteor shower, forcing her to use her invincible barrier, because her companions weren't around to defend her. Only several seconds were required for the entire situation to change. They were just at an impasse of sorts, but every single member from the body sect was suppressed and stifled in this instant. How is this possible? Emotions and disbelief rose up in Wei Na's heart. There was no way she could believe, or accept that Shrek's 7 monsters could achieve such tacit understanding and chemistry all of a sudden from how chaotic things were before this. They hadn't communicated with one another at all before everything happened, so how could they all flare up at the same time, and how could they all choose different targets? Furthermore, their movements connected with one another so seamlessly that there were almost no loopholes or weaknesses at all. What was Shrek's 7 monsters' greatest strength in group battles? Rather, what was their core fighting strength? Why did they choose to go into the group round, even though they knew that every single member of the body sect was incredibly powerful? Shrek's 7 monsters' core fighting strength wasn't Beibei's Golden Holy Dragon, or Shusanshi's Xuanwu Domain. Similarly, it wasn't Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong's martial soul fusion skill. It was the invisible and intangible spiritual detection that was shared amongst everyone during their group battles, and it was with this spiritual detection that everyone could achieve frightening chemistry and mutual understanding. This was their mightiest force, and it gave them the courage to challenge stronger opponents in a group battle. The Tang Sect's team had been probing their opponents from the very beginning, and they deliberately relaxed and separated themselves afterwards. Hu Yuhao had planned and created every single tactic and movement, from when they seemed like they lacked teamwork and were at a disadvantage, right up until this moment, when they all flared up at the same time. He only had one true goal: he wanted to take down the body sect's strongest member, Long Aotian. No matter how many hidden abilities Princess Wei Na possessed, and whether or not she was her team's core, her overall prowess was still a far cry from Long Aotian's. The most important result that Hu Yuhao wanted to achieve by taking down Long Aotian wasn't just to weaken the body sect's overall strength, he also wanted to attack their confidence. All the calm and composure from before was so that they could charge up for this moment's eruption. The blue, purple, and gold light sphere that Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong had fused into transformed into an enormous vertical eye in the same moment that it returned to the ground. This was Hu Yuhao's spirit eyes, and Wang Dong was supporting him. The enormous eye seemed deep and profound, and a boundless world seemed to appear if one gazed closely into it. In the next moment, a frightening mixture of blue, purple, and gold light shot out. This beam of light resembled a symphony of lights, as it fired straight out, and everywhere it passed by was tainted with a peculiar golden color. This included the separating layer that the unbreakable Doluor had laid out across the ground. Long Aotian was still struggling as hard as he could inside the red binding light that was keeping him down. He could feel that something was wrong, and he unleashed his strongest technique, his martial soul true body, in an attempt to break free from the binding light's manacles. But this Class 7 binding light was simply too powerful. The claim that it could temporarily restrict a Soul Doluor's abilities wasn't just a myth, and even though Long Aotian had unleashed his martial soul true body, and his entire body had gone incandescent, he could only watch as the bindings around him slowly broke down. However, the multicolored beam had already arrived in front of him. This beam passed through him in the blink of an eye. Just when everyone from the body sect believed that this attack was focused on Long Aotian, the enormous, 3-meter-wide tricolored light beam instantly elongated, and almost split the competition stage in two. Jiang Nan still had Jiang Ishi immobilized with her soft bone lock, and disappeared in a flash through instant shift. Jiang Ishi couldn't even react, as she was swallowed by the tricolored light beam. The golden road amidst withering resplendence, Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong's first martial soul fusion skill. The binding light holding Long Aotian finally broke apart, but he had been transformed into a golden statue. He wasn't the only one. Jiang Ishi had also become a golden statue after she was struck by the golden road. Long Aotian was exceptionally powerful, but Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong both had twin martial souls, one was a soul emperor and the other a soul king. How could their combined efforts, their martial soul fusion skill, not be powerful? They had teamed up to defeat and best mighty soul sages before. The best way to fight against the Golden Road was to avoid being struck by it. In the end, the Golden Road couldn't lock onto a target. But once struck, Martial soul true body, dispelled, martial soul, dispelled. Intense light and spiritual energies gravely corroded their bodies, which were frozen in place. The gigantic tricolored vertical eye reverted into a tricolored sphere, and the temperature in the air plummeted in the next moment. The tricolored sphere transformed once more, and black and white lights intertwined as a terrifying pressure was unleashed. Ice-cold frost and snow swept up as a black hammer appeared with transparent ultimate ice condensed on its surface. A huge blizzard immediately billowed around Long Aotian, with his body in the middle, and the freezing low temperature created another transparent layer of frost and ice on his body, which had already become a golden statue. A giant formed from frost and snow grasped an enormous, fearsome hammer, and it seemed like it was going to tear the world to pieces as it plunged down from the sky. This was the fusion between the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion and the Clear Sky Hammer. This was one of Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong's other martial soul fusion skills. Blaze amidst the frost, the Heavenly Emperor's Hammer. The Binding Light, the Golden Road, and the Heavenly Emperor's Hammer. These three supreme abilities were what Hu Yuhao had prepared to end Long Aotian. Hu Yuhao might not have been able to defeat Long Aotian even if his body was fully recovered one-on-one. However, Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong against Long Aotian in a 1 versus 2 situation meant that Long Aotian didn't stand a chance at all. Hu Yuhao's soul power was being consumed at an alarming rate, but Wang Dong was the main director now, and it wasn't very problematic for them to unleash two martial soul fusion skills at the same time. Long Aotian has been eliminated. Wei Na screamed at the top of her lungs, and her voice sounded piercing and shrill. Her exclamation was directed at the unbreakable Doluo, Jingzhon. How could she not tell that Long Aotian, whose martial soul was being stripped from his body, was absolutely unable to resist this attack? But Jingzhon seemed to be half a beat slower, and he was one step too slow to save Long Aotian. A sharp scream rang out from Wei Na's mouth, and the 5 soul rings on her body suddenly transformed at this moment. Her 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 1 black soul rings suddenly became 6 identical black soul rings, as the 4th of her new soul ring sparkled with black light. Everyone could see twisting and contorting waves ripple from her body amid her ear-piercing scream. A silver-white light sphere flickered behind her back, which seemed to be composed of countless rolls and folds. It was the shape of a brain. This was her 4th soul skill, Wail of the Banshee. It was a formidable soul skill that layered spiritual and sonic energies together, and it was a 10,000-year soul skill. Wei Na couldn't be bothered with anything else when she could tell that Jingzhon would be a little too late. She immediately unleashed a powerful ability that was the most likely to save Long Aotian, and couldn't be bothered with hiding her second martial soul's soul rings anymore. Everyone could tell from her second martial soul that she had only begun to attach soul rings to her spiritual type martial soul after she became a soul king or a soul emperor. Every single ring was a 10,000-year soul ring. Even though she could have done it better, this was enough. It was hard for soul masters with spiritual type martial souls to obtain suitable soul rings in the first place, Hu Yuhao being an obvious example. It was even harder to find 100,000-year soul rings. 100,000-year spiritual type soul beasts did exist, but every single one was exceptionally powerful, and that meant hunting and killing one was very challenging. It wasn't that easy for the body sect to find and kill soul beasts like that even with their host of powerful individuals, let alone finding and killing as many as 9 for Wei Na. The body sect was a sect, it didn't exist just for Wei Na herself, and even if they had the ability to help her accomplish all that, the sect's other members would call this unreasonable resource allocation into question. Therefore, Wei Na chose to attach soul rings to her second martial soul after she became a soul emperor, so that she could attain honor and glory for the Heavenly Soul Empire in this season's tournament. She was the Snow Demon sect's second strongest team member after Long Aotian. Could her Wail of the Banshee stop Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong's Heavenly Emperor's hammer? Every single person who was currently locked in battle was affected by the twisting waves when they rippled outward. Wei Na couldn't be bothered with friendly fire, because Long Aotian was in a perilous situation of life or death, and even her teammates were subject to this mass control type soul skill. Every single person subconsciously covered their ears as their minds temporarily blanked out, accompanied by a momentary weakness in their bodies. Xiao Xiao only had 5 soul rings, and she began to bleed from her nose. Jiang Nan was about to attack Jiang Yishi after the latter was struck by the golden road when she groaned, and her nose began to bleed as well. The body sect's team members had it a little better. They understood Wei Na well enough, and everyone made the necessary preparations. But even so, every single ability they were unleashing or channeling was interrupted. It was a pity that this mighty skill that had miraculous effects on everyone did nothing when it went up against the Heavenly Emperor's hammer. It couldn't shake the hammer at all. Hui Yuhao was also a spiritual type and control type soul master. His spirit eyes only had 5 soul rings, but what kind of soul rings were they? Without talking about his other soul rings, his first soul ring was a million-year soul ring, while his spiritual power had undergone multiple evolutions and was in the concrete immaterial realm. Furthermore, he was teaming up with Wang Donga in this attack. How could he be so easily shaken? Long Aotian's consciousness was still clear, but there was only one thought in his heart: it's over. The Heavenly Emperor's hammer loomed over him. He no longer had his martial soul to protect him, and ultimate ice had invaded his bone marrow, while the Golden Road's intense corrosive effects were encroaching frantically onto his wounded body. He would possibly have a chance to resist everything if he were in his peak condition, but now he could hear Wei Na's voice very clearly in his head. However, there was only sorrow in his heart. If somebody had told him before the tournament that he would die in combat, he would have been full of disbelief and disdain towards that comment. He had too much faith in his own strength and abilities, but everything that was happening before his eyes had rendered his mind completely blank and empty. It's over, everything's over. Wei Na's frantic attempt to save him hadn't slowed their opponents in the least. The floor quaked and trembled, as the Heavenly Emperor's hammer was just too destructive. The hammer's petrifying effects instantly swallowed everything within 20 meters of it, and the entire arena became a world of ice and snow. No. Wei Na gave a blood-curdling scream as tears burst from her eyes. Long Aotian wasn't just the strongest individual among everyone in the body sect's younger generation, he was also her boyfriend, who she loved dearly, and her fiancé. However, her tears were just trickling down when her eyes grew slack. The reason for that was because she could clearly see that the enormous hammer didn't smash into Long Aotian's body, and even though he was thrown into the air as the hammer slammed against the ground, the golden hues on his body were gradually receding as he hurtled through the sky. 2 figures separated in mid-air. Hui Yuhao was tossed into the sky, and landed back inside his all-terrain self-driving fortress that was still prostrate on the ground, while Wang Donga stretched her wings and soared away through the air. She lifted her hands at the same time, and a hexagram array accurately appeared beneath Jiang Yishi's feet. Still struggling against the effects of the Golden Road, she was immediately swept into the sky. Wang Donga pushed her hands out immediately afterwards, and a mass of intense golden light burst towards Jiang Yishi, the butterfly goddess / He's still alive. Long Aotian is still alive. Wei Na had forgotten that she was still participating in a tournament at this moment, and her tears paused for only a moment before they cascaded out like a waterfall once more. Wei Na was also very powerful individually, and this was the reason she knew very well that Hui Yuhao and Wang Donga weren't affected by her attack. They had shown mercy to Long Aotian. Long Aotian somersaulted in mid-air as he dropped back on the ground. His entire body was quivering continuously. The Heavenly Emperor's hammer hadn't hit him, but Hui Yuhao's ultimate ice was so cold that he was still freezing all over. His face seemed exceptionally slack and lifeless, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. How many people had died at the hands of the Tang sect in the previous rounds? However, the Tang sect gave him a chance today, in this match. He was still alive, still alive. Long Aotian realized, for the very first time, that life was wonderful. To be alive was to have hope, and he was the #1 individual among the body sect's younger generation. He was also the Heavenly Soul Empire's future emperor's son-in-law, and he was Wei Na's fiancé. I'm still alive. In this moment, his typically tough and cold face overflowed with complicated emotions and expressions as he lay there dazedly, motionless. You've been eliminated. Xingzhong was a little too slow, but he stepped in front of Long Aotian now. Wei Na didn't holler at Xingzhong for nothing, and even though he was deliberately 1 step slower, Long Aotian was definitely going to be eliminated from this match. Long Aotian was truly too frighteningly powerful in terms of individual strength. If one team had to win this round, the subsequent teams would probably rather have the Tang sect advance. Long Aotian's slack eyes gradually recovered. His eyes were full of disappointment and frustration as he looked towards Hui Yuhao, who had landed back inside his all-terrain self-driving fortress. Long Aotian nodded heavily before he turned around and walked towards the edge of the competition stage. He was strong, arrogant, and proud, but he also knew about gratitude. Furthermore, he did actually lose. Long Aotian's defeat was just as Hu Yuhao had predicted, and the rest of the body sex team members were greatly affected. Every single one of them was shaken to the core, and even their main control-type soul master, Wei Na, was full of rippling emotions. There was no longer any doubt as to the outcome of this battle. It wasn't hard to imagine how Jiang Yishi would end up, as she had to face off against Wang Dong's butterfly goddess/unprotected. Furthermore, she was still being controlled and arrested by the Golden Road and Wang Dong's hexagram array. Wang Dong deliberately held back, and Jiang Yishi was eliminated shortly afterward. It was 7 versus 4 after that. Hu Yuhao had practically lost all his fighting strength, but he still had his all-terrain self-driving fortress. The Eye of Terror in the sky fired a powerful light beam at Wei Na without hesitation. Wei Na managed to recover and react in time, and fended off this attack. However, she sustained light injuries in the process. Bei Bei, Shu Sansha, Xiao Xiao, Jiang Nan, He Kai Tu, and Wang Dong unleashed their mighty abilities, and took another 5 minutes under Hu Yuhao's command while he struggled to keep his spiritual detection going to finally suppress their opponents. It was quite a challenge, but they finally emerged victorious. The round was over, and the Tang sect had defeated the Snow Demon sect, or rather the Body sect, and proudly pushed into the semifinals. However, Shrek's 7 monsters weren't in good shape. Hu Yuhao was completely spent, while Shu Sansha, Jiang Nan, Xiao Xiao, and Bei Bei were injured. Shu Sanshi's wounds were relatively more serious, but the only 2 who emerged perfect and unscathed were Wang Dong and He Kai Tu. Even they had also expended a lot of soul power. It could be said that it would have been an almost unassailable task for the Tang sect to defeat an opponent as powerful as the Snow Demon sect without Hu Yuhao's planning. It would have been very difficult to determine who the winner would have been otherwise. The Tang sect didn't win because they were stronger. It was far more accurate to say they won because of Hu Yuhao's battle tactics and strategies, all the way from the single elimination matches to the group battle afterwards. Hu Yuhao had been dragging the Snow Demon sect by the nose the whole time. We won. We won. Shrek's 7 monsters exchanged looks with one another, and not a single one of them could hide the elation in their hearts, as they exclaimed excitedly again and again while embracing one another. Of course, this didn't include Hu Yuhao. He was far too spent, and could only move his right hand anyway. Even if he could bounce himself out from his all-terrain self-driving fortress, he would probably fall down and knock himself dizzy. Wang Dong pulled him out from his fortress gently. The tournament had progressed into the semifinals, and the semifinalists had been determined. They were Shrek Academy, the Heavenly Dragon sect, the Holy Ghost sect, and the Tang sect. The 2 teams from Shrek Academy each took a spot in the semifinals. Congratulations! Wei Na, Long Aotian, and the rest of the Snow Demon sect's team members arrived before the Tang sect. Wei Na's pretty face was still gleaming with tears, as she grasped Long Aotian's left hand tightly with her right hand. Her smile was very sincere, as if she hadn't lost the match at all. Bei Bei chuckled and said, "Beating you guys in this round was difficult for us." Long Aotian said, "We will fight again if the opportunity arises." He turned towards Hu Yuhao as he spoke. Hu Yuhao was weak and exhausted, but he was still hanging on as he sat there in his wheelchair. He nodded back at Long Aotian with a ghastly pale face. Wei Na said sincerely, "Thank you for showing mercy, Yuhao. I will always remember this favor. Aotian is my fiancé, and I wouldn't have known what to do if something had happened to him during the tournament." Hu Yuhao smiled and said, "We are not your enemies, princess. Furthermore, the Heavenly Soul Empire is one of the Tang sect's biggest customers. How could I afford to damage our rapport and friendly relationship? Brother Long, we will fight again when I'm fully recovered. I have to admit that I can't defeat you at the moment if we go up against one another one-on-one." Long Aotian replied, "No, I'm the one who has lost today. I'm the team leader, but I was too focused on individual strength, and I didn't help Wei Na streamline the team and keep them together. We put too much faith in our individual abilities, which was the biggest reason why we lost to you in this round. Your team is a lot better than us in that respect. I've lost, and I've lost convincingly. However, my failure will only be for this day. From tomorrow onwards, I will work hard to make up for my weaknesses and what I lack." Hu Yuhao chortled and said, "We are not your enemies, but I'm very willing to be your rival." Long Aotian strode over to Hu Yuhao and reached out with his right hand. Hu Yuhao raised his own, and they smiled while they stared into each other's eyes. They were full of appreciation for one another, and all the grudges and ill feelings from the battle before this vanished into thin air. Wei Na walked over to Bei Bei and whispered some things into his ear. Bei Bei's head tilted to one side and his eyes sparkled, and the two of them interacted with their eyes before they bid their farewells and left the competition stage. 4 teams advanced from the quarterfinals, and the semifinals were about to begin. The quarterfinals' final match was undoubtedly the most epic and spectacular one. The Tang sect and the Snow Demons sect were both met with warm applause from the audience as they stepped off the competition stage. These 2 teams didn't belong to the Sun Moon Empire, but everyone knew how to respect strength and might. These 2 teams had obtained sincere admiration and respect from the Sun Moon Empire's citizens. The tournament had progressed into the semifinals, and the semifinalists had been determined. They were Shrek Academy, the Heavenly Dragon sect, the Holy Ghost sect, and the Tang sect. The 2 teams from Shrek Academy each took a spot in the semifinals. Congratulations! Wei Na, Long Aotian, and the rest of the Snow Demon sect's team members arrived before the Tang sect. Wei Na's pretty face was still gleaming with tears as she grasped Long Aotian's left hand tightly with her right hand. Her smile was very sincere, as if she hadn't lost the match at all. Bei Bei chuckled and said, "Beating you guys in this round was difficult for us." Long Aotian said, "We will fight again if the opportunity arises." He turned towards Hu Yuhao as he spoke. Hu Yuhao was weak and exhausted, but he was still hanging on as he sat there in his wheelchair. He nodded back at Long Aotian with a ghastly pale face. Wei Na said sincerely, "Thank you for showing mercy, Yuhao. I will always remember this favor. Aotian is my fiancé, and I wouldn't have known what to do if something had happened to him during the tournament." Hu Yuhao smiled and said, "We are not your enemies, princess. Furthermore, the Heavenly Soul Empire is one of the Tang sect's biggest customers. How could I afford to damage our rapport and friendly relationship? Brother Long, we will fight again when I'm fully recovered. I have to admit that I can't defeat you at the moment if we go up against one another one-on-one." Long Aotian replied, "No, I'm the one who has lost today. I'm the team leader, but I was too focused on individual strength, and I didn't help Wei Na streamline the team and keep them together. We put too much faith in our individual abilities, which was the biggest reason why we lost to you in this round. Your team is a lot better than us in that respect. I've lost, and I've lost convincingly. However, my failure will only be for this day. From tomorrow onwards, I will work hard to make up for my weaknesses and what I lack." Hu Yuhao chortled and said, "We are not your enemies, but I'm very willing to be your rival." Long Aotian strode over to Hu Yuhao and reached out with his right hand. Hu Yuhao raised his own, and they smiled while they stared into each other's eyes. They were full of appreciation for one another, and all the grudges and ill feelings from the battle before this vanished into thin air. Wei Na walked over to Bei Bei and whispered some things into his ear. Bei Bei's head tilted to one side and his eyes sparkled, and the 2 of them interacted with their eyes before they bid their farewells and left the competition stage. 4 teams advanced from the quarterfinals, and the semifinals were about to begin. The quarterfinals' final match was undoubtedly the most epic and spectacular one. The Tang sect and the Snow Demons sect were both met with warm applause from the audience as they stepped off the competition stage. These 2 teams didn't belong to the Sun Moon Empire, but everyone knew how to respect strength and might. These 2 teams had obtained sincere admiration and respect from the Sun Moon Empire's citizens. On the rostrum, Xu Qianran didn't leave right away after match like he always did. Instead, he was just sitting there with a dark and gloomy look on his face. 15 minutes passed before Xu Qianran finally raised his hand to signal Zhu Zi to push him off the arena. He departed with his servants and his bodyguards escorting him. "Zhu Zi, I'm full of grievances after that round," Xu Qianran spoke and sighed at the same time. Zhu Zi said tenderly, "Don't be displeased, Your Highness. Even though the Sun Moon Empire didn't enter the semifinals, we still have the Holy Ghost sect." Xu Qianran shook his head and said, "The Holy Ghost sect's strength doesn't belong to us in the end. If not for the fact that we have to deal with the Body sect and Shrek Academy, do you think I would have been willing to work together with those evil and nasty fellows? However, we are falling behind in nurturing our younger generation. Shrek Academy and the Body sect have lived up to their reputations as sects and entities with a long history. If not for our soul tools, the Sun Moon Empire might not be able to dominate the entire continent even after 10,000 years. Today's battle has enabled me to understand many things. I have been too arrogant and proud in the past. Juzi heaved a faint sigh and said, Your Highness, you will definitely become a brilliant emperor of the Sun Moon Empire in the future. Xu Qianran smiled faintly as he patted her hand. I don't care about being a brilliant emperor or whatever. What I care about is the process of expansion and development. I care about unwavering determination in the face of challenges, the ambition and the courage to reach the top of the world. My entire life is devoted to reigning supreme over the entire Doluo continent. Juzi said resolutely, You will definitely be successful, Your Highness. I will always be your pawn and your vanguard, and I will always be willing to fight for you, no matter the occasion. I will not regret it even if I have to die in battle. Xu Qianran laughed and replied, No, you are not allowed to die in battle. I am still hoping for us to share that glory and honor when it comes time. I will always need someone who knows my heart beside me, and you're the most important one. Juzi seemed touched as she responded, Thank you for your love and concern, Your Highness. Do you think the Holy Ghost sect can defeat the Tang sect, Your Highness? It seems like the Tang sect is quite strong indeed, judging from their performance today. The body sect actually lost to them. Xu Qianran answered, The Holy Ghost sect may not be stronger than the body sect in terms of individual strength, but don't forget where the Holy Ghost sect comes from. Their presence is very different from the body sect, and the most frightening thing about evil soul masters isn't their strength, it's their evil. Of course, none of that is important anymore. No matter who claims the championship in the end in this tournament, these elites of the younger generation have only two choices, submit or die. Juzi felt her heart quiver as she bit down on her lower lip. Her beautiful eyes seemed to be pondering something. The Tang sect had returned to the hotel. They couldn't be bothered with a post-mortem this time, and everyone went back to their respective rooms to rest as soon as possible. They had achieved their main goals in this battle. The body sect wasn't their enemy, after all, and the Tang sect had managed to win and progress into the semifinals without damaging their relationship. They had completed all their main tasks in this tournament. Hui Yuhao sat opposite Wang Donga as they channeled their Haodong power together. Color had returned to Hui Yuhao's face, and he wasn't as pale now. Today had been far too exhausting for him, and taken a toll on his physical and mental strength. Much of his soul power and spiritual power had been consumed. Long Aotian had been right, the body sect's entire team was too proud and arrogant, and they weren't able to unleash their strongest individual abilities, because of their teamwork, or rather, the lack thereof. But even so, Hui Yuhao was still overly spent as the Tang sect's team leader and commander. Hui Yuhao was thinking back over the entire match, as he sat on his wheelchair on the way back, and made his own evaluations about the body sect's individual team members. He realized afterwards that if both teams' battle strategies and tactics were in place and not problematic, there was only one way the Tang sect could defeat the body sect: his body had to recover. It was only then that his fighting strength could be unleashed to the highest possible level, and he could cooperate better with Wang Donga. Only then would they have a chance of defeating the body sect. They rested for nearly 4 hours before they headed to the canteen to eat. They were met with 2 guests in the canteen. More accurately put, they were met with 2 princesses. After their meal, Bei Bei, Hui Yuhao, Wei Na, and Shu Jojo sat together in the living room on the Brilliant Delight Hotel's top floor that belonged to the Snow Demon sect. Both princesses had lost their respective fights, and while the Star Luo National Academy was defeated straightforwardly, they managed to keep themselves in one piece. Shu Jojo's expression was very normal and casual, as she had already foreseen today's outcome when they drew the Holy Ghost sect as their quarterfinal opponents. When do you guys plan to depart? Bei Bei took the initiative and asked with a smile on his face. Shu Jojo exchanged a look with Wei Na and said, We're not in a hurry. I think we'll wait for the entire tournament to end before we'll leave. If the Brilliant Delight Hotel refuses to continue providing their services to us, we'll find a nearby hotel to stay in. Oh? You don't seem like you're in a hurry to return home, Bei Bei continued, with the same smile on his face. Shu Jojo glanced in his direction. She had a strong impression of the Tang sect's eldest senior brother. This guy was handsome, and he always wore that faint smile on his face. He seemed scholarly and refreshed, and it was easy for others to have a favorable impression of him. However, his fighting style was drastically different from how he typically carried himself when he wasn't in combat. He was ferocious, and was as fearsome and intimidating as could be. Bei Bei and Shu Sansha anchored the Shrek's 7 Monsters Vanguard. Yes. We're not in a hurry. The semifinals and finals will be even more spectacular. Since we're here, we should finish watching the tournament before we go, Shujojo responded with a bright smile on her face. Most of the teams who had been defeated chose to leave. The tournament spanned a very long period of time, and the Brilliant Delight Hotel turned away those who had been eliminated from the tournament. Some teams couldn't find a place to stay in the city even if they wanted to. Of course, some of these teams had arranged things for themselves beforehand so they could continue watching the tournament. Most of these teams were the Sun Moon Empire's native teams, so it was relatively easier for them to stay behind. The teams that belonged to the Doluo continent's 3 native countries mostly didn't choose to stay behind, because they weren't very friendly with the Sun Moon Empire. They didn't want to stay for too long, because they were afraid that the Sun Moon Empire would take action against them. Shujojo turned towards Wei Na after she declared that she was staying behind. How about the Snow Demon sect, Sister Wei Na? When are you guys leaving? Oh, that's wrong. I should call you guys the Body sect. I didn't expect you to have so many secrets. You have twin martial souls, and you're also one of the Body sect's prodigy warriors. White Silver Second Awakening. Very impressive. Wei Na had returned to normal by now, and she still wore the same gentle and tender look as she always did. She smiled faintly, and dimples appeared on her cheeks like a fresh and pleasant lily flower. Since you aren't in a hurry to leave, then we are even more reluctant to go. We'll wait for the tournament to end before we leave. Shujojo smiled and said, that's great. We can accompany each other when we leave. I guess I'll have a companion for my journey. Wei Na nodded. That's good. Bei, Yu Hao, why don't we decide on a time and place so we can leave together after the tournament? You can call the others from Shrek Academy too. The more the merrier. Bei heaved a faint sigh and shook his head. We are very exhausted today, my dear princesses, and it isn't very convenient for Hui Yu Hao to move around. We've expended too much today, so we should stop beating around the bush and get straight to the point so that we can go back to rest after our discussion. Otherwise, the two of you can finish your discussions beforehand and find us afterwards. Shujojo's expression didn't change as she listened to Bei calling her out on her tongue-in-cheek. Wei Na blushed, but she was still smiling pleasantly as she stared at Shujojo in amusement. The two princesses looked at each other, but neither of them seemed willing to speak first, and the room instantly descended into silence. Bei waited for a little while before he heaved a faint sigh and walked behind Hui Yu Hao. He began to push Yu Hao's wheelchair, and they started to leave. Wait. Shujojo couldn't hold herself back anymore, and spoke first. Shujojo didn't have the same confidence and strength that Wei Na did. Even though she had faith that she was better than Wei Na at managing and handling things, Wei Na had the Body sect behind her, and there were probably many powerful individuals from the Body sect in the area. Wei Na had reason to be confident, and she had reason to feel safe. But what about her? Would her company be able to ensure her safe passage back home? Bei pressed his hands on the golden tree wheelchair's handles and turned towards Shujojo. Shujojo paused for a moment and said solemnly, all right. I'm not going to beat around the bush anymore. You guys have seen what the tournament is like. The Sun Moon Empire is becoming stronger and more dominant, and according to our analysis, the Sun Moon Empire has a malicious plan that they will execute after the tournament. We're not sure what their plan is, but the Sun Moon Empire's strength combined with the Holy Ghost sect is a big threat to everyone. We will have a hard time defending ourselves if they make a move against us, as this is their territory, after all. Therefore, I want my people to leave together with you guys. Together we stand, and divided we fall. It's easier for us to take care of one another when we're together. Bei tilted his head. Shujojo had portrayed her sincerity relatively well with her words, and this was probably what she had meant from the start. Perhaps her words weren't complete, but they were enough to express her anxiety and worries. Wei Na nodded and continued, I agree with Jojo. Together we stand, and divided we fall. The Sun Moon Empire is too calm and quiet, to the point where I feel afraid. It would be a lot safer for everyone, and we will find ourselves in a better situation if we all leave together after the competition. At least, they'll have to try a lot harder if they want to deal with us. Bei glanced at both princesses and said, either one of you can represent a country, but the Tang sect is just a tiny sect. We'll probably not participate in this. Both Shujojo and Wei Na were astonished by Bei's response. From their perspective, The Tang sect had no reason to reject their proposal, but Bei Bei did so directly and straightforwardly. Hui Yuhao said nothing at all in his chair. He was being a patient listener. Bei Bei was the Tang sect's eldest senior brother, and was also the Tang sect's real director. Hui Yuhao would always hold himself back when Bei Bei was around so that his eldest senior brother could decide everything. This wasn't just because of his respect for Bei Bei, it was also because he had absolute faith in his senior brother. All right. It's getting late, princesses. We'll take our leave first. We can continue this discussion afterwards. With that, Bei Bei pushed Hui Yuhao's wheelchair and left the room. Xu Jiujiu and Wei Na glanced at each other, both of them temporarily rendered speechless. Wei Na forced a laugh after a long while and said, I thought Hui Yuhao was difficult to deal with, little did I expect that the Tang sect's eldest senior brother was even more difficult to deal with. It's apparent that he thinks we're not sincere enough. Xu Jiujiu also wore a black face as she turned towards Wei Na and said, Wei Na, I know that you have the body sect behind you. But you should also understand that the Sun Moon Empire hates the body sect more than they do us. If they really have some evil plan to execute, the body sect will be their first target, Shrek Academy will come next, and then they will target us. Let's have a heart-to-heart talk, what do you think? Wei Na tilted her head and said, all right, then I won't hide anything anymore. We are not just here to participate in the tournament, we also have to execute other tasks and duties. Bei Bei pushed Hui Yuhao and walked down the hotel corridor. He shook his head in exasperation and said, these princesses are so sly and cunning. They don't wish to give anything, yet they want to drag us onto the war chariot. They've calculated this well, but what do we have? We represent the Tang sect, not Shrek Academy. We don't know who they have and how many people they have backing them up, and we don't even know how Shrek Academy has arranged things. Our advantage is that our company is small, and the Sun Moon Empire can't do anything against us if we really want to leave, because we have you around. It's better for us to avoid getting involved in this. Hui Yuhao laughed bitterly and said, we will be much smaller targets if we lose the next round. However, if we win, the Holy Ghost Church will surely come after us whether or not the Sun Moon Empire targets us. Bei Bei nodded and said, there are still many things that are blurry and unclear. The princesses are in more of a hurry than we are, while everything will be clear after the tournament's next round. At the very least, we can be sure that the Sun Moon Empire will not make a move against us within Radiant City even if they want to. Part 1 end here.